Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me as usual is Aaron William Freeland. Aaron, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad in yourself, Frank.
Oh, just peachy keen. It keeps snowing. When's it going to end, Aaron?
Where you are?
Oh, for gosh sakes. Yes, it's snowing. We got another 3-4 inches today.
Oh, goodness.
It's getting to be where 3-4 inches is a dusting. Just to give you an indication, I should have a different. I should have a different background. Just snow and trees. Just snow and trees. It's been the way it is. Is it not so bad there? Is the snow melting? You have no snow?
Oh no, we have a generous covering, but the roads are clear and it's not snowing anymore. It's just bitterly cold. We're talking about minus 11 or 12 right now, so that's where we're at.
So drop us 2 degrees colder, 2-3 degrees, so you have an idea what we're doing up here.
That's not too bad.
It's horrible.
It's as long as you stay inside, you're fine.
It's horrible. Anyway. Well, Riley O'Reilly. Sounds like an Irish song. Riley O'Reilly. Riley O'Reilly. O'Reilly. Well, anyway. So the Leafs got a Riley with an extra 0 on there, or an O, depending which way you look at it. They go to Buffalo. Accounts suggest that it was an 80 to 20% fan base support for that game, or 60-40. I think it was 60-40. 80-20 might have been a little too steep. It was something like 60-40. The point being that there were more Leaf fans at the Buffalo home game that it really didn't seem like a Buffalo home game.
Yeah, the Toronto fan base actually travels really well. Buffalo is one of our favorite places to go, just mainly because we can actually get tickets, and they're affordable.
It doesn't take that long to get there.
Nope.
When you say jet, you can do it on 4 wheels.
Exactly. No, so at least pulled in there, and O'Reilly is most famous for leaving Buffalo under a bit of a cloud, in particular after comments that went along the lines of, we've gotten used to losing and I've lost my love of the game. And wasn't something that he said once. It was said on multiple occasions. And this is before he was with St. Louis and Colorado, before he ended up signing with the Leafs. The interesting thing to note, Frank, is he had a hat trick in that game. And in the 3 seasons that he was with Buffalo, he never scored more than 1 goal in a game.
In Buffalo.
For Buffalo. Yeah.
Yeah, he left Buffalo and ended up in St. Louis. Showed a lot of leadership skill. Wore the C in St. Louis. Won the trophy with Maple Leaf Gardens in it, the Conn Smythe. So all of a sudden now everything he said in Buffalo has a whole different slant when he wins the cup, right? Because, and then, wins the Conn Smythe trophy. It speaks to the fact that maybe, just maybe, I'm not saying for sure, maybe you kind of want to have guys on your team that don't like losing.
I think it's generally a good sort of thing if you have players on your team that aren't fond of being on the wrong end of the score. Over the course of his career in 2013-14, he won the Lady Byng with Colorado. And then, he got the Selke as the most defensive forward, and then the Conn Smythe in the playoffs. So it's one of those things where you look at the player that you're bringing in, and you can kind of, give him a pass almost for the 3 years that he spent in Buffalo. I think the interesting thing, and this was pointed out on the hockey broadcast last game, he's still under the contract he signed in Buffalo. That I believe expires either this season or next. So it's one of those long term deals that got signed and is uh, still bearing fruit.
Uh, you know, the game against Chicago was not a very good one. A follow up to it, the coach felt that there had to be some pushback. So instead of after that game offering him a little bag skate, which I hope people understand what that means, and literally skating till your ankles are gone and you're skating literally on your knees, rather than do that, in the coach's infinite wisdom, he decided to give the boys the day off. You think
Well,
they'll ever practice again?
it's tough to say. I know that practices are a necessary evil as much as players don't like them, but sometimes the right thing to do isn't what's generally perceived as the right thing to do. So giving them the day off and just saying, hey, you know what? Sit back, lick your wounds, take it a little bit easy. It's not the end of the world that we lost. It's not good that we lost, but it's not the end of the world that the sky isn't going to fall. Take a little time, rest, regroup, and come back at her when you're feeling, a little more rested. And you're getting to that point in the season where, yes, they may have just had the All-Star break. That's cool. I get that and I understand that. But at the same time, you're looking at a Leafs team that has played since the All-Star break quite a few games, and this is, they played Columbus back to back, won one and lost one there, lost 5-2 to Chicago, then played Montreal and Chicago back to back with travel over the weekend, and then played against Buffalo on the Tuesday night. So, it's one of those 5 games in a week and a bit, is a game every other day. And no matter how in shape you are, that is going to take a toll. So giving them the night off and giving them the day off and saying, hey, boys, do yourselves a favor. It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world that Keith could have done.
I think also it was a bit of a challenge. If this was a team that was fighting for a playoff spot, if this was a team that was finding difficulty in finding a good game, playing a good hockey game, if this was a team in search of whatever it is that it takes to be a consistent winner, maybe they don't get a day off, Aaron. I think this was, we talk about trap games. This was a trap plan that the coach had. He said, okay, no excuses. We go to Buffalo. We're not going to practice. I better see that energy that you were supposed to use in practice on the ice. And he did. We saw an elevation in the tenacity and the pace of the Leaf game as soon as the puck was dropped. Let's talk about O'Reilly again.
Honestly, there were some folks that doubted that he would work at center with Tavares on his left wing. Some people that just weren't sold on that whole idea. But he scored with 351 of the first and then 428 of the first. So, 2 goals relatively close together. Tavares gets another one and he manages to seal it with the empty netter. There were some folk that were actually wondering if the Leafs maybe didn't kind of let Buffalo back into it so that they would pull the goalie so that O'Reilly could get his third goal. I don't necessarily put much stock in that, but there was a bit of a defensive swoon from them for a period during the third, where Quinn, Tuck, and Skinner all managed to score. Yeah, Quinn and Tuck in about 3.5 minutes, and then Jeff Skinner about 8 minutes later. That's the sort of thing that they're going to have to tighten up on and work on at the next practice that they have, which is, I'm going to guess why they're not going to not practice anymore.
Can I do my imitation of a typical Leaf fan under those circumstances, the team looks like they should have won 7-0, instead win 6-3. Can I do an imitation of that?
Sure.
Why can't they be perfect?
Eh, I've yet to see an 82-0 season. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
You know what I mean? It's not good enough that you win. You gotta do it. You gotta be perfect. You can't do anything wrong. Oh, darn it. Come on. You can be perfect. We pay you enough money to be perfect. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and the fact. Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No, that was it. I said my piece.
Okay, I was going to say the 3 goals that O'Reilly scored. There were people that were already starting to poo-poo the trade even after the first 2 games because O'Reilly didn't immediately light it up.
You know what? Things are going to get better and worse. Here's the thing about athleticism. This is the thing about sports. It's not how good you are, it's how good you end. And if you're an Argo fan, you understand exactly what I'm saying. It doesn't matter that you lose a game really stupid. It doesn't matter that the quarterback played like crap this week. It doesn't matter if a coach made a mistake, which a grade 3 student would not make. What matters is, do you play in the last game of the year and do you leave the winner? That's all that matters, folks. So we can sit here and get all irritated because the Leafs aren't perfect. Leaf fans don't know what it looks like. And I don't mean this as an insult, Aaron, and please don't take this personal. They don't know what it's like to be a winner, So I have to forgive them in not being able to handle the inability or ability, whichever, to be conscious enough that their team can win, because always in the back of their mind is, what is it now? What are we up to now? 66 years, 56 years? What is it? 56 years?
56 years now, yeah.
Right? But, good. Math works for both of us. We're up to 56 years of not winning. So it's sort of ingrained a little bit in every Leaf fan. And there aren't many people right now around. I'm a very, very, in a very, 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 did I say very? Small, extremely small, itty bitty group of people that actually watched the Leafs win a Stanley Cup. And I had the privilege of watching 5 of them. So, I shouldn't rub it in. I know. I'm sorry. I should have just left it. I've seen the Leafs win the Stanley Cup, but I've seen them do it multiple times. And the memory of the celebratory life that happened with those Leaf victories was only the half of it. The other half was, when the playoffs come, is this another year? Not is this the year? Is this another year? Are they going to do it again? Well, every voyage, every trip starts with your first step. So their first step is to win that first series. Now, I think we can agree that O'Reilly will be a contributor to that. And I'm not saying it's all up to him. No. What I'm saying is that I think he brings, as they say in Quebec, the je ne sais quoi, that maybe the Leafs need. This guy won, he won the Conn Smythe Trophy. And you can win the Conn Smythe Trophy for various reasons. A lot of times you're a goaltender that shuts the door through the playoffs. You're a goal scorer that scores buckets and buckets and buckets of goals. Or you're a guy that leads your team and plays the kind of game that leads to a championship. Guess which guy the Leafs traded for?
Oh, they most definitely got the guy that leads. That's
right.
And that's the entire intent behind the trade, guaranteed. They weren't looking for elite goal scoring. They weren't looking for a hard-nosed, sort of defensive-minded sort of player. They were looking for a player that leads by example. So
and a hard nose too. He can drop the mitts. He's not a guy that does it very often. You don't want him to do it. But still, to your point, you're right. Don't misunderstand what I just said there. You're right. I have to say that it's always a pleasure to see Toronto fans happy. For me, I repeat this over and over again. I'm not a Leaf fan. I'm a Toronto fan, which makes it more about the city and watching the team celebrate. And let's be clear about something. Toronto fans, that statement I made about the Leafs, Toronto fans don't have that excuse anymore that they don't know how to win. Toronto fans know how to win. They know how it happens. Just like that. You don't see it coming, and all of a sudden your team is on a roll. And you're wondering if that roll is going to end. And then the ball does this, the dink, the dink, the dink, the bink, and you win. And then you don't stop winning. And that's what the Leafs are going to need, Aaron. And this is a guy that, and I like both players that they traded for.
No, I think Noel Acciari was a very good pickup as well. That is one of those players where, and this is a term that gets used an awful lot. The sandpaper element comes in, and
Absolutely.
getting him in the deal as well
Tenaciousness.
is, yep.
And he's a guy that statistically the GM likes because of he has a very high goal possibility ratio. A goal's going to happen when he's around. A positive thing's going to happen because of him. He has a very high percentage of that, which means he helps produce goals. And the place that the Leafs needed the most help, at least this is what we hear from people, and I can't argue about it. I kind of agree. But even the experts suggest that the fourth line needs to produce, and all the teams are looking for fourth lines that produce. That's what you're going to need in the playoffs because you're not going to be able to run your first line into a nub.
No, this is very true. You have to be very careful when it comes to your players, and this is where that dreaded two words load management comes into effect. You got to make sure that your players are looked after. As part of this trade as well, there was another part of this trade by the name of, I believe it was Josh Pilar,
Okay.
that has come over as well. He's with the Saskatoon Blades in the WHL this year. He's currently 21 years old, so he's an overager, but he's a prospect that we got back in return for the 4 draft picks that went out. So, it's one of those, there's something else to help restock as well. He's a blue chip sort of prospect, but he's also, a way to restock the cupboard based on the fact that we gave away the trades, the draft picks that we did in the deal.
I think there's the other thing that people neglect to recall. There's a kid named Nyes in the system. He wasn't a draft pick. They didn't get him through the draft. I'm bringing this point up for a reason. He didn't come through the draft. He came through college, where players play a little longer, are a little older, and they literally play through their draft year. And then they become free agents when they finish college, and they get to decide which place they want to play. Now, here's a little thing that I want to give Leaf fans a little, because I don't like the idea that draft picks given away. You know my sentiment on it. I'm totally against it. But one has to also, even though you think something's wrong, you got to try and understand what you can do once something goes wrong or is being done wrong. It makes the Leafs a little more attractive that they're a good team for players to pick. And college players that are coming to the National Hockey League, if the Leafs come calling and they know the Leafs don't have very many young guys in the pipeline, what does that mean, Aaron, to a young guy making a decision to where he wants to play? And let me underline the word play.
Yeah, no, I mean there always has to be
Watch the Leafs sign
opportunity
a
for
couple.
those individuals, right? And if there's not a lot of undrafted players in your pipeline or in your farm system, and you're mainly going the drafting route, you could very potentially miss some very good players. And there have been a lot of picks that and signings that Dubas has made that have turned out really well for them. And these are individuals who came through the college system or who weren't necessarily picked up during their particular draft year, but that he's kept tabs on. One of those guys, I believe, is Pontus Holmberg. He was a great surprise when he played up for the Leafs for a few years, and he's been doing very well with the Marlies. So that's one of those players to keep an eye on. Nyes, again, another one of those players that you want to keep an eye on.
They didn't
There
give
are
him
other
up in
players.
all this movement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
So
people are concerned that that would be what it took.
sorry, did
You
I freeze?
oh, I guess, I guess.
Sorry.
Well, I guess you froze because I thought I said something and then Aaron's waiting for me to stop and then I stopped. Um, yeah, Nyes is a perfect example of the kind of player the Leafs can end up with
Yeah.
because they don't have a lot of draft picks. And I can't emphasize this enough. And all you need to do, folks, is wrap your head of what I'm saying is that if you're a player of Nyes talent, that you know that you could make an NHL team, but you need a chance. And a lot of times it's not unusual. And I think a lot of hockey fans, a lot of NHL fans, a lot of Leaf fans in general understand this premise. When a GM drafts a guy first overall, we've seen it in Toronto. When they get drafted first overall, they move heaven and earth to give that player a chance to be successful. If you don't have one, that opens up the game a little bit. That opens up the field a little bit. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So you watch when the American kids or the American college players, I should say, now they're Canadians, many of them are Canadians. When that comes about, you're going to see at least I'm going to predict they're going to sign at least two blue chippers, and they'll be able to make the sales pitch. Look, we traded away all our draft picks, and you will get a chance. I promise. We kind of don't have a choice. We're going to have to give you a chance, and that'll be able to get them the kinds of players who have established how good they are at a more mature level, right? Which leaves you with the opportunity of being more, the player can be a little more predictable. And you know that the players that come out of college are more refined than the ones that come out of junior.
This is true, and again, it's because they're overagers that they have the opportunity to play and to get a little more seasoning. As it stands going into July here, the Maple Leafs are going to have 3 draft picks, and one of them is a conditional, which is their third-round pick. Arizona has the option to exchange the 2025 second-round pick for Toronto's 2023 third-round pick if there's a player they see in this draft that they want to get. But we don't draft until the third round and then the fifth and the sixth. There's no first, second, fourth, or seventh-round pick for Toronto this year. That is additional inducement for college players to try to do what they can and get their names out there and perform well. 2024, we're looking at sort of the same situation. We've got a pick in the first round, but nothing in the second and third, and then picks in the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, one of which is Ottawa's. 2025, same sort of deal. We're missing a pick in the second and the fourth round of the 2025 draft. So there's plenty of room here for the Maple Leafs to go out and find themselves that diamond in the rough, which they've proven themselves extremely adept at doing. I'm not
And
sure
we
what sort
see,
of.
sorry, I was just going to toss in that, and we see the Leafs a lot and teams a lot leave guys up for grabs because they don't have any contract spaces. That's the other issue that
Yeah.
this, one has to remember as well. You can't keep all the players you want. You're limited to how many contracts you can sign. I think it's 50. So if you don't, if you have a lot of draft picks, you still gotta fish or cut bait with some of them. So what really matters is the top. I figure the top 30 players you have are what matters. What do the top 30 players look like? The other ones are ones that are basically, well, we hope they're going to turn out into this. So what's really important is as long as the Leafs can fill in those top 30, I'm going to call them the top 30 players in their team, on their team and in their pipeline, they'll be fine if they can fill them with the kind of players that they've filled them over the years because they've done a great job in having players that other teams want. Now, I can't express enough that if other teams want the players that you hang up, ready to take, and they take them, that you're doing something right.
And again, that speaks to the quality of the players that we're getting in, depending on how
Absolutely.
many of them actually get snatched up, and not a lot of them make it through waivers, right? So that's a clear indication that we're doing something right.
And what I haven't mentioned and is just as important if a team gets a reputation for for having a lot of great players, they can know how to pick players, or what they can do, which you don't notice as much, which only they know more, or true insiders know, that they have the ability to turn prospects into players. Because this is one of the issues that bad teams, we witnessed it for how many years with the Maple Leafs under Ballard. They didn't develop players. They had players that were blue chip prospects that were spinning their wheels. Trade them, and all of a sudden they become the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. Randy Carlyle, for example. That's
Yeah.
that's what this is what this Leaf team does, that none of the Leaf teams the past the 50 years before Dubas was here could do, before Shanahan was here. Because got to give him credit too. A lot of people are saying they haven't won a cup under Shanahan. Yes, it's true. He is not a president of a team that wins a championship or has won a championship. But I'm not giving up on the idea that he can do it, and or Dubas can do it. This may be the year that the dream dies in them filling it. And if it dies with them filling it, we know what's going to happen when a new regime comes in, Aaron. There's going to be, the garbage cans are going to get kicked around. It's the deck chairs are going to start moving. Some are going to be thrown off the ship. So it's not going to be pretty if there's a regime change, because there isn't going to be the loyalty and dedication to the players that find themselves in that top 30 or top 50.
Now, the other thing to consider in all of this as well is the Toronto Marlies are currently sitting second in the AHL at 73 points, directly behind the Calgary Wranglers, who have 75 points. This is another indication, and this would be another draw for me if I were an unsigned or undrafted player. Looking at the farm system itself, there's my in. This team is doing incredibly well right now. There's something there that's meshing. What do I bring? What can I push? And can I crack that lineup? So
can I be part of an organization that knows how to win?
Exactly.
Do I want to see how good I am by being around the best, or the best? And this is the key word: the best they can be. And that's what this is all about. As much as I've criticized Dubas, I've criticized him because he's made mistakes that I feel cost the Leafs Stanley Cups. But just because I believe that, feel that, and felt that in the past, doesn't mean I'm going to be bitter and judge him because he made mistakes, and not give him a chance to show that he's learned from his mistakes. He's been very slow, in my opinion, in learning, but he's done something that a lot of people can't do, and that's learn. It's really easy to have all the answers. It's really easy to have all the answers thrown at you. It's not easy to be able to apply them, to accept them, apply them. And he's learning. He was learning on the job. He was just a kid. He's just a kid. We have to remember how old he was when he took the job. Heck, how old he is now.
He's only 37 years old.
Exactly. As some of his players are older.
Interesting side note, I don't think Dubas has ever been general manager of a team where he's been the oldest person as the general manager. So, there's that too.
He came out of junior, Aaron. They're 18 years old at their oldest.
Now, the other thing to bear in mind here as well is the Leafs ECHL affiliate, the Newfoundland Growlers, are also second in the ECHL. So anywhere you look, all the way up and down the spectrum, you have the Newfoundland Growlers, who won the Kelly Cup. You've got the Marlies, who won the Calder Cup in 2018. And you've got the Maple Leafs now, who are sitting pretty in the NHL. So
are we sure who deserves credit for all that, Aaron? Are we sure who deserves credit? Do we give Dubas credit? Do we give Shanahan credit? It has to be one of them, because somebody is setting up a table that delivers this. There is a chef in the kitchen. I mean, maybe they're wearing a mask. I don't know, but there is a chef in the kitchen. The food's looking pretty good. The recipes are working. Whose recipes are they? Well, I happen to think that it's a recipe, in my opinion, that is both Dubas and Shanahan. As much as we would like to see, and I would like to see you celebrate. I would like to see Toronto fans celebrate a Stanley Cup. I want to see that. I want to see it in you. I want to, and be a nice birthday present. I want to see this happen for the people in Toronto, the town that I was born in. I'm very proud to have been born in Toronto and lived there my first few decades. Yeah, so it's all about a combination that sometimes, like a recipe, if you pull a little thing out, you don't realize how important that little thing is, or you think it's little and you don't realize how big it is in the recipe. So right now, the Leafs have a recipe of winning in the organization. As yet, they haven't done it at the most crucial and important time, and that is the playoffs, which is just a
Yeah.
reality. I don't mean that as a knock, a slight, other than just a simple fact. And that's that they've got to erase that. And it's not, and as much as people are saying, well, if they finally win that first series, no, in the position the Leafs are in living in that Atlantic division, it's not going to get easier after that first series win. It's just going to get just as bad, if not worse. As bad as it is to play Tampa, playing Boston is not going to be better, not
No,
by any stretch. New
no,
Jersey,
it's going to be. However, you look at what's happening here, it's not always going to be easy. It's not going to be fun. But at the end of the day, it'll be worth it. It'll be so worth
absolutely.
it.
I want to see Toronto fans like I saw them. Well, unfortunately, with the Raptors, it was. I'm sorry if I'm leaving hockey here and talking about basketball. It almost seems as though when I think about it now, just as a thought that I'm reaching for, because the obvious thoughts have all been talked about. The thought that worries me the most about the Raptors and their win is they kind of surprised everybody, especially their fans. Come on, who thought they were going to win an NBA championship when the playoffs started? Come on, that was a team that was having a hard time winning. Oh, wait a second, that was a team that was having difficulty winning a series.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming. It came out of nowhere, and that turning point was that particular series and that particular shot to win that particular game when all of a sudden everything just gelled. And it's that one moment that you look for based on the players that you bring in. And I think the Leafs are trying to replicate that to a certain extent. They may have just found the pieces that they need. Not saying that I'm optimistic or nothing, but I'm optimistic.
That was a double negative.
Exactly.
Okay,
I'm optimistic.
all right, but you were being optimistic through. I can add to that negativity optimism. Um, you know, as much as everybody thinks, the Leafs should be, a Stanley Cup champion, that they're that good a team, I don't think I don't think people would be less surprised if the Leafs did it too. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
Yeah. Well, let's go to some news. There's stuff happening in the red and white. Apparently, Ottawa's pledging $2.4 million. Why are they pledging $2.4 million, Aaron?
Well, they're currently pledging this money for trades apprentice programs in the Northwest Territories Toledo region. Um, this is for 30 new apprenticeships there. It's meant to support small and medium-sized businesses to hire, train, and retain first-year apprentices in eligible trades over the next 2 years. That includes carpenters, drywall finishers, heavy equipment operators, sheet metal workers, and welders. Grand Chief Jackson Lafferty says these trains are needed in the area, particularly in isolated communities. This is, to address a shortage when it comes to a very real need that northern communities have, and that's keeping things in good repair.
Only time will tell, but apparently, an internet company's under investigation by Canadian authorities. Tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah. Now, this video sharing platform, which is actually owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, has come under scrutiny
You mean
over
the
concerns
government?
that it's handing information to Beijing. That's
You
a
mean the
that's a
government?
genuine concern.
You mean the Chinese government?
Yep. Yeah, and now Canada's Office of the Privacy Commissioner says it's launched a probe into that alongside provincial privacy regulators from Quebec, BC, and Alberta. This was in the wake of a now settled class action lawsuits, as well as numerous media reports related to TikTok's collection, use, and disclosure of personal information. Um, Canada is joining governments from around the world who've been raising concerns over TikTok because of fears that China could use the app to harvest users' data or advance its own interests. So the Dutch government has reportedly also advised public officials to steer clear of the app. A ban has already been introduced for U.S. members of the federal government. Rishi Sunak has resisted so far calls to ban government officials from using it, but he's saying be very, very leery of it. So, for those
Absolutely.
of you who are afraid of the government getting your information, got news for you. Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok probably already have more than the federal government does and is probably selling it back to them. So,
Okay, so drug regulation in Canada is really important. When two of its top officials quit, should we be concerned?
I I think personally it is an issue that we should at least take a look at. Douglas Clark with the Patented Medicines Prices Review Board said that he would be stepping down. And this is a day after Matthew Herder, a professor of health law at Dalhousie University, announced he had resigned from the same board. The government, they're saying, has fundamentally undermined the board's independence and credibility. Uh, this is one of those situations where they've been working on the regulations since 2016, and it seems that the federal government isn't allowing them to pass the regulations that they need. The federal government has often hindered progress on the file by failing to effectively defend the proposed rules in court and been putting off implementation of those rules that they've been proposing multiple times, often at the 11th hour. So they're expressing their frustration with what the government's been doing over this.
I'm putting on my long johns there, and I hear there's some storms in maybe the offing here in Ontario.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you're still getting snow, and 3 to 4 inches is
Yeah,
now more and
that
more
tells me
often
there's
being
going to be
considered a
something
dusting.
worse coming.
Yeah,
I'm looking out
they're
there. Worse is already happening.
well, there was the storm that we experienced Wednesday leading into Thursday morning. That cleanup is still ongoing for. Uh, there's a Colorado low that's scheduled to come in Monday or Tuesday of next week. It's going to be sweeping up through Windsor and across through Toronto. Um, so
Not
this
to
is
be
one of those things
confused
you
with a
have to be aware of.
California high.
Exactly. This is a Colorado low.
uh, I have to make fun of weather, Aaron, or I'm not going to be able to survive because this is, SAD. It's a term, and it's real, and winter is getting to us. But the good news is that I look out at 6 o'clock at night, and it's still light outside. So we're over the hump of 6 o'clock, where it means most people who get home can actually step outside and have a look outside, maybe have a coffee outside and enjoy the light. It's starting to feel like springtime. Okay, I'm trying to put a positive spin on the way things are. Aaron's the downer. I got to figure out something to say to make it better because, God darn
Well,
it,
I'm
jeepers,
not
creepers.
not not entirely upset with the way things that have been going.
Good
It got
Lord.
warmer for a bit, and I was happy. It's going to be chillier tomorrow. I'm not happy about that, but I'll just have to make sure that I walk faster between the different pubs that I'm going to. It's one of those situations where you got to make the best of it when you can. So,
And sometimes you also have to be good, and being good and generous can have a good side effect is knowing there's good weather on the way. The Harriet Tubman Church is getting some upgrades there.
yeah. So there was a church in the Toronto. Sorry, there's a church in Ontario that Harriet Tubman used to attend. They're planning on opening it soon for tours, as well as putting a little bit of a museum in it. The church itself is in St. Catharines, once the home congregation of abolitionist Harriet Tubman. This is one of those things where they're trying to uh, put a little spotlight on Black history. So it's the Salem Chapel British Methodist Episcopal Church, uh, which is not far from the downtown of St. Catharines.
Our friends in BC aren't very. They're not going to be very happy with the weather if it happens as predicted.
Now there's a gigantic slug of cold air that's currently just sort of hovering over BC. It's causing a lot of snowfall. It's caused a lot of the air temperatures basically to drop as low as the minus 30s. And that's expected to keep up over the next few days because the temperatures are going to be so cold. It is projected that it could potentially disrupt travel. The good news is when it's this cold, it doesn't normally snow. So there is that. But there
And
are
it doesn't
projections in
melt.
the Whistler area of 20 to 40 centimeters falling. So
The other thing this cold does is it raises our bills, our heating bills, and the main way people heat their homes is with gas. There's one lady who's not happy with the not mustard and not that ketchup of billing, which is basically paying for gas you thought you paid for, but they're saying, excuse me, there's a little extra we didn't charge you.
yes, there's a lady by the name of Ingrid Raudsep who lives in Mississauga, which is where I live, just west of Toronto. She got a bill from Enbridge Gas saying that she owed $7,430 for the previous year. Now, she got the bill 5 days before Christmas. Perfect timing on you there, Enbridge. Enbridge is usually supposed to read meters, at least once every 2 months. But due to sort of a lack of oversight, Ontario's energy regulator has been slacking on that sort of thing. The OEB launched a review in response to an increase in customer complaints related to issues such as meter reading and estimated billing with large catch-ups. But they also, charged Enbridge a $250,000 penalty for slacking on doing their jobs. This is one of those
They should they
situations
should give
where,
the benefit to people like her, Aaron. They shouldn't be
oh, most
able to.
definitely.
In my opinion, I would fight for the fact that they couldn't double what you owe. They shouldn't be able to double what you owe. So if you get to the point where you're so lackadaisical about checking meters, you can't do that to people.
Now,
You
Enbridge
just
did
can't.
blame it on a locked gate at her house, saying, well, we couldn't read it because your gate to your backyard and the meter is always locked. We can offer you a credit of $300, which, on a $7,400 bill amounts to diddly over squat. Um, but the original reason they put up the gate was because they put a pool in their backyard, so it's a safety concern. They didn't want just children or animals being able to access their backyard and end up drowning in their pool, which is a bigger headache.
Well,
But as a
I would think and hope that you know um, that's a tough one because if they didn't give them access, I'm not here to defend Enbridge, but I guess it will take this as advice for people out there. If you put up a gate or if you lock something up, make sure the gas where the meter where the meter where the meter is where you can check the amount of gas you've used is accessible to them and make the gate on the other side. On the other hand as well, I think something that you need to think about is maybe possibly they should put the meter in a place where it is accessible in a more
Here's something
reasonable
I'd like to
location.
point out in all of this. Ingrid and her partner are both retired. They are both at home. Had the company really wanted to read their meter and make an effort, they could have knocked on their front door and been given access.
There's a good
I'm
chance.
just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but this all comes down to what it sounds to me like. What we see in the world today. The best way, the number one way to improve profits for corporations and big companies, fire people.
Oh yeah. Oh no,
Right?
guaranteed.
That's
Work.
that's the
This
best
is
way. That's the best way to increase your profits is get rid of employees and basically tighten your belt. Not your belt, but tighten the belt of your company in the way they treat people. Okay, we gave corporations a kick in the what. Let's leave it there and move on to our next story. Toronto needs a mayor. Their mayor quit, Mayor Tory. So it turns out there's going to be a by-election. That means another election for mayor of Toronto.
Yeah. Now this is going to be happening on or around June 26th. John Elvidge, who's the Toronto City Clerk, says the date is subject to council declaring the mayor's office vacant and passing a bylaw requiring a by-election at its meeting next month. Nominations for mayor would open on April 3rd, provided city council could actually pass this bylaw at their meeting next month, which is always in doubt because Toronto is not one of the most smoothly functioning city governments that I've ever come across. Nominations would open April 3rd and close May 12th, with the vote taking place. Advanced polling would take place 8th to 13th for the city of Toronto, and the in person on June 26th. So,
Let's go.
Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey has assumed power, but she has also said she does not plan to run for the city's top job. She's just holding the place until a decision can be made in the month of June.
Good for her. Let's go back to the Leafs and let's talk about injured player Jake Muzzin. It doesn't look, Aaron, like he'll be coming back this season. In fact, the Leafs put a pin in his career for now.
No, this all happened after he suffered a follow-up neck injury on October 17th with Arizona Coyotes forward Clayton Keller. The initial injury actually stems back to a cross-check that went unpenalized that he received from Pierre-Luc Dubois that ended up with him falling into another Winnipeg player's knee, which is what caused the initial injury in the first place. The collision with Clayton Keller unfortunately exacerbated the injury, and as a precaution, Muzzin has been shut down for the rest of the year and will be reevaluated over the course of the summer. In the meantime, the Leafs will be able to put him on long-term injured reserve and potentially use his salary to fill the hole that's going to be left behind by the fact that he is not eligible to play for the rest of the year.
And there's been talk about a defenseman, lesser expensive defenseman, one with missing teeth, if you understand what I'm saying. I just mean that as a joke, just making a point.
Yeah, there has actually been a lot of talk about one of the Shen brothers coming back to Toronto. So
the one that was here to begin with.
Yes, the one who we named a troops charity after. So it'd be interesting to see if that comes to fruition.
Luke's Troops.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody remembers that. Yeah, he'd be a welcome addition to this Leaf team on the back end. Just somebody to go out there and say, okay, so I understand somebody wants to party.
Well, his primary role would be that of a tenderizer. Over the course of a 7-game series, you need somebody like him.
Absolutely, because that's exactly there isn't a defenseman that knows exactly where to cross-check on a consistent basis as much as Luke Shen. Right there in the numbers, just below the numbers.
Exactly.
Make it hurt. And we know that Leaf fans know, and Leaf fans can talk to Austin Matthews about that. He's had that sensitive area hit a few times, so he knows the effectiveness of that cross check. If not called, and then it's explored repeatedly, it can become an interesting tool. And in the playoffs, the Leafs have learned from being on the opposite end of the tools out there that play hockey. That maybe they need a couple on their side. We're going back to the world of Tiger Williams.
Yeah, and a tenderizer is always a role that never really goes out of style. You're not talking about a thug. You're not talking about a goon. You're not talking about an enforcer or anything like that. Just a guy that likes to go out and lay the body.
It's the story I told for a long time, and it's necessary. It unfortunately is a necessary evil. Look, I understand Toronto has to be the city, Toronto the good, but it's time to understand that if the Leafs are going to win a cup, they're going to have to do it like everybody else. Every other team that's won a Stanley Cup has not said please and thank you. They've said gimme.
This is very true.
As much as I don't like that attitude in the playoffs and in any sport, gimme is what you need. No please and thank you, please. Don't bother. It just doesn't work. That doesn't mean outside of that, we know stories, Aaron, of so many players that on the ice they're one, a type, and then in person, you're not that hockey player.
No, yeah, there's always the stories that precede the player, and the player that we get is not necessarily the player that we thought that we were getting. So that's just something to be wary of.
I give you the final word, Aaron. Thanks for this. I appreciate it.
Nope, thank you for that, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news and entertainment and sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget Candid Frank Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. You can check out all the shows we do. Ciao.